everyone, and welcome back. So this is season 6, episode 2, where Susie is joining me to talk about Goddess Isis. Let me tell you about Susie first. So Susi Jones is a wisdom keeper, author, hypnotherapist, and spiritual healer with a long career in mental health as a clinician, tutor, and manager. So Susie channeled Maya, which is the illusion of self, for 18 years until she was handed over to the goddess Isis in January of 2021. Over the course of a year, Susie and Isis have built a strong working relationship. And in February of 22, they began to write a trilogy. Isis is on a mission to guide people to go beyond the veil and live in the fullness of their spirit whilst on earth. Their first book in the trilogy is called Isis Wisdom, Unveiling the Magic of You, and you can find that link below in the description. Now, Susie, thank you so much for joining me today. And as previously discussed, we're going to start with a little centering and encoding, if that sounds all right with you.
Superb, thank you. And thank you so much, Angie, for the invitation. And Isis says thank you too.
You're welcome.
Isis talks about words being encoded, and that means that they enter into our hearts in a very specific way, and that words never really leave. So she asked that wherever we are, whoever's watching, that you just take a moment. If you want, you can put your hands on your higher heart. You don't have to. You don't have to close your eyes. You can do whatever feels right. And just for a moment, take a breath. However you breathe, perfectly normally. And all this is doing is centering you and allowing you to receive any encoded message that Isis has for you personally. So just be in that place of receiving. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you, Angie.
You're welcome.
She's quite bossy. She's quite bossy.
Well, aren't we all? So I wanted to bring you onto the show. I know you have the book, which is the reason, I mean, you and I connected and we met through a different group. And then I saw that you had this book, and I have my own personal connection with the goddess Isis. And when I saw that you had that book with that title and about that, I was like, okay, I need to bring her on the show. So thank you for joining me on this. Definitely.
It's a pleasure. It's so lovely to be here.
So tell everybody a little bit about how you came about the goddess, because you mentioned, I believe it was 2021.
Yes, it was late in 2020 when Maya, through the meditations and the channeling we did, said very clearly, I'm going to hand you over. Well, that was like a divorce. Who wants that, you know?
Go.
And I just I didn't resist, because I've learned over the years not to. And Maya is the illusion of self. So it took 18 years for her to get through the shell of this woman in order to enable me to understand what she was saying, I think. Oh, that's Oreo, my dog. She often joins in. So.
It's okay.
Anyway, so I was speaking to a friend who's an Hermetic initiate, and I told him what was happening. And I said, I've got this golden energy around me. And I wonder if it's a goddess, you know, or something. And he said, which goddess? I said, I'm guessing Isis. And I'm not an Egyptologist, but of course, I think everybody knows about Isis, don't they? Anyway, and he just said, I think you're right. But I just sort of put it on one side, and Maya and I kept sort of channeling and carrying on as usual. And then one night I was woken in the middle of the night, and I laid there and the room was bright. It was dark outside. Our curtains were quite dark, and there was all this golden hieroglyph on the ceiling. Now, a few years ago, that would have scared me a little, I'll be honest, but it didn't. It was like, wow. It was like a light show. It was amazing. And these golden hieroglyphs were like wisps of light that were moving. And it wasn't two-dimensional. It was a three-dimensional holographic thing that I was looking at. It went on for a long, long time. And I was just bemused and amazed by it. And I sort of, when I look up, I can still remember it. It's very vivid in my mind. Anyway, so the next morning, it took a while to get to sleep after that, of course. The next morning, I heard this voice in meditation, it's time we got to know each other. We're going to write a book together. I thought, oh, no, we're not. You know, you've chosen somebody. And I know why Isis chose me. And what she is very clear about and speaks about in the book is that she's chosen many people to be her voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there are lots of different people that she's communicating with, some to write books, some to write music, some to make films, some just to chat to that person in the supermarket. You know, she's here and she wants people to interpret her voice and send that message to the world, because she desires that we all live. I think everybody here knows that we're spirit and we have got a physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And we all, and she talks a lot in the first book about bringing that spirit into the body, the higher self into the body, which I'll share with you a little bit of it later. And what she's saying now is that she wants us to bring all the power of our spirit to earth and condense it, not really, but let it be that we're living in this physical body, rather than it was, and it's always been for me, the physical body bringing the spirit in.
Right.
So she's asking us to move to bring that more into our lives, that our spirit. So I'm a bit in the faking it till I make it stage, I'll confess, because how do you bring all that powerful energy into your day-to-day life when you're washing the pots and having a shower, all of those things? So it's a new experience for me, but that is what she's now calling us to. And because in our power, we're infinite. And we're just limitless. So that's what she's asking of us. And I'm really excited with that new revelation. And for the year that we spent getting to know each other, and me still debriding myself of some of the cultural and educational veils that I had. You know, in that year, if she was teaching me to be the best version of myself today, which will be different tomorrow. And so then eventually, I think it was, I saw there are no coincidences, are there? And I saw an advert for a Hay House event, and it was a free 4-day event. And I was told to put everything down and just get on and do that, because I knew there was a book, and there's a cupboard behind me that's full of books to be written or to be published, really. So I went on this course, and I think it was after day 2 of this course, we started to write the very things she wanted a year before. And because I'm stubborn and because I'm pragmatic and everything else, and I wanted it to be right. And what I found, we made a commitment to 7,000 words a week for 10 weeks, which was huge for somebody who wasn't in that discipline of writing. So we started, and I kept reading it back and hearing my voice, so I deleted it. All these powerful words I deleted because I could hear my voice in it. And eventually, it probably took us 2 to 3 weeks before I knew she was there, and it was her words that I was typing.
Right. And the thing, sorry, I was going to say something real quick, because the thing is, several of the things that you've just mentioned kind of leads to that.
Yeah.
It's not just that you're being stubborn about it. It's that we're so conditioned and taught that you have to be pragmatic, you have to be logical, you have to have a format, you have to have a structure, that you're getting all these beautiful voices. And of course, we filter them through the mind, which is why you say it sounded like you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was kind of an exercise, because I see it kind of, I could, while you're speaking, I could kind of see you writing, kind of like when we do in school, like the rough draft, which is never good for anything, because it's just like brain dumping all the information. And then it's kind of like, okay, I got that out of my system. now I can do it. And then she was able to channel through you, because that's one definite way that you were channeling when you realize, okay, I don't write like that. That's definitely the message.
Absolutely. And because I'm a therapist and she's with me all the time, I would say that we've merged in so many ways. And I feel her, and I feel some of her energy. I haven't said that I actually met her, have I? So can I tell you that?
No. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in that first year, I think it was after we'd written the 70,000 plus words, which edited down to about 63, actually. So it was interesting. And a friend of mine told me about this lovely little chapel. I live in the United Kingdom in the largest county called North Yorkshire, which is beautiful, has a beautiful Jurassic coast and lots of history. And there's a small little chapel called the Mary Magdalene Chapel. And I think they have one service a year there. So it's not really it's way in the moors, and it's very sweet, very cute. And she was telling me that she tones in there. She speaks like, or sings light language. So she invited me to go along, and I said I'd love to. So she was doing her thing and I was doing my thing. And all of a sudden I felt this hand on my shoulder, and this voice said, "Don't look around. I'm in my glory." I said, okay. In other words, it would have been too bright, so I'd have hurt my eyes. And in front of me stood two women. One was Mary Magdalene and the other was Isis. And we all have this beautiful image of her, don't we? Of golden, with her crown, a throne on her head, or eagle wings or whatever. And this was not who I saw. I saw this tiny, petite, beautiful, beautiful woman with the most mesmerizing eyes, and in wayfarer's clothes, in sort of village clothes of her day.
Okay.
And I just was overwhelmed by these three beautiful presences. And it was like, oh, that's really interesting. Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Isis in the same room. And I actually wrote, which is a personal thing, I won't share that, but I actually wrote some notes and messages from them, which I think was my need for this pragmatist, this human being needs for reassurance that I wasn't making this up.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off. It's just
you cut me off. It's fine. It's
cool. The thoughts are coming to, and I'm like, let me ask her before I lose it. Because when you said Isis, Jesus, and Mary Magdalene, for me, it was kind of like the goddess showing you the divine masculine and the divine feminine. That's kind of what I picked up when you said that.
Yeah, I think that's lovely. And that really fits in with a present day personal development and spiritual development I'm going through. So thank you for that. I hadn't sort of seen it in that way. Thank you. That was great. Yeah.
And that's why I was like, I have to say it, because as soon as you saw it, that's what it represents to me. And it's kind of like showing you both the divine masculine and the divine feminine.
Absolutely. And Isis has such power. If you, and a lot of you will know who I mean, because you're experiencing this power through her. And if you aren't and you want to, just say it, you'll get it. Just ask, because she will come. She's in very, very well. There are many, many high level beings that are coming through in order that we can become brighter and lighter, and again embody our spiritual bodies, if you like. Yes. So that's why we are in this wonderful time of our lives. And I'm so honored to be here, so honored to be present as a mature woman in this time, and to see young people like yourself just on fire. It's just beautiful. I love it. I'm so excited. And I have some amazing friends who just rock it in such an amazing way. And when over the years, a lot of our light workers have been so segregated and separated, and now we're meeting each other and we're communing and building a tribe. And this is what the book is about, is actually about this very thing of really knowing you're not separate from anything, and that we're all interconnected despite our 6 hours apart.
Right. Actually, it's interesting because when we learn, so I studied alternative, I've studied a whole bunch of stuff, plus I've channeled, plus, you know, the whole experience. When I learned of how everything is entangled in the quantum science world that they talk about entangled, in spirituality, it's very easy. We're all connected. It means the same thing.
Yeah.
I want to share something with you, which is funny. Tomorrow night, I'm having my next online women's circle.
Lovely.
About 3 days ago or 4 days ago, I spoke with somebody and I was helping her, you know, we were coaching, and I was helping her, and she was able to see that she's not fulfilling her soul's happiness because she's thinking of the logical business, pragmatic, you know, the whole thing. And when she just talked to me, I was like, why don't you follow music? Like, that is your passion. So point is, yesterday she sends me a message in the morning and she's like, I just heard this song and everything clicked and everything you said, and I'm going to share my message and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's awesome. That's beautiful. I'm so happy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, by the way, if you want to, cool. If not, no worries. I was thinking of a song for my women's circle, like just a little, you know, song, and we can start getting you promoted and we can put it on the show and blah, blah, blah. That was yesterday morning. Yesterday evening, one of my sisters happened to pass by my house, my actual sister. And then this girl sends me the message of the song that she came up. She's like, out of nowhere this afternoon, this came to me. Everything that song says is exactly what my sister and many of us women, my sister needed to hear at night when she came over. So we're all connected. We're all one. We call it the goddess. We're talking about Isis here, but it's that divinity. It's that higher soul of all of us, knowing outside of time and space and confinement and logic what this one needed to hear and this one needed to hear, and how they're both helping each other and they don't even know each other.
Absolutely. And I was listening to Paul Simon yesterday, actually, and he's channeled a new album called Psalms. I don't know what the actual album is called, but I mean, it's fascinating. It's amazing that he heard this voice, and I think it took him a while because he wrote the music, but didn't know why he was writing it. And it's quite different than his normal. Well, I know he hasn't got a normal style because he's very eclectic, but it's quite a different sort of tone. But it was that the interviewer said, well, where did this information come from? He said, from me. And of course, this is it. It's all me. We are one. And I think, and again, in the book, you know, Isis teaches us how to make that connection with our highest wisdom in order that we can be as one. Because when you get rid of all this clutter, and it is clutter, isn't it? You know, and we've all been through it. And it's interesting. A lot of spiritual people think once you've dealt with it, it's dealt with. And we were talking about that the other day, weren't we, Angie, about the onion? I mean, Isis uses a far more pretty way of describing it. You were wrapped in 1,000 layers. You prefer the onion, 1,000 layers of wrapping paper, or an onion, whichever you both. And it's about how we do that. We just move forward and really from there, let go of all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And let it in.
Right.
And when you are spiritually awakened, you keep coming back to the same thing to get a bit more awakened by it. So which is exciting, isn't it?
It is. So I want to talk about your book, because I know that the last time that we spoke, we were looking through the different sections or chapters. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that book covers? Because I know each section, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's also interesting. Oh, I like that one.
Okay, yeah. So this is the book with lots of bits of paper sticking out of it. There are 6 stages in this book. There's an introduction where Isis talks about herself. And she does talk about the fact that she doesn't read stories about herself, I'm not an Egyptologist, and people assume that I
Right.
know more. I genuinely do not know more. And I really value and respect everybody who does, because it would muddy my relationship with her to be heavily into mythology. So she said that she wouldn't recognize the stories, so she doesn't read them. That does not mean that they're wrong.
Right.
So the first stage, and I sort of made a few notes just to save me looking for the whole book for you.
Okay.
The first stage is called Unwrapping the Mystery and Magic of You. And let me just get to it. If you don't bear with me one moment.
No worries.
There are 29 guided meditations in here.
Okay.
Okay. And what she says is that one of the first sections of this Unwrapping the Mystery and Magic of You, which is where she is introducing things like meditation, creating a sacred space, the future you, what you're looking for, what is it that you're aiming, why have you picked this book up really? And then the journey, which again is a beautiful story. And there's something called a well of love. And she says this: deep inside you, there is a well of love that you and others can draw from. This well of love is so pure, so clean, so free from everything that is happening in the body. It is the source, the very essence of all you are.
Beautiful.
And I think if you allow those words into your heart and do rewind just to hear those again, then you know that you can't be alone. And you know that whatever anybody else's opinion of you, it's irrelevant, because you know you are love. And she says the simple way to discover the magic of you is to create an intention. And this is a stage by stage book, or it's a dip in and out of book, and it's around creating intentions. So there's a lot of education in this lovely book. Let's see what's next. Yes, she what does she say here? She said simple steps to connect to your highest wisdom. If we create an imagined space outside of Earth's atmosphere in the cosmos, you can call it heaven or something else. I will use all that is. And that is what we use so that everybody knows they can interpret that as their word, because she's multi everything. She doesn't want to separate anybody from it through words. So by using all that is, you can interpret it. Imagine that part of you lives there. And she teaches you how to make that connection to your highest wisdom. And there's several aspects of that in the book. And it's called the golden thread. And basically, how we put our hand on our heart just to let the words in? She describes this as like a tunnel of light that goes all the way up to all it is and connects you. So love can come through when you need it. Healing can come through it when you need it, or if you're giving it. And it's like that deep and wonderful connection to your highest wisdom. Wow, it's so powerful when you experience and practice these things.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is still in the first stage. One of the things that is called a hall of records. Now, I won't read it, I'll describe it. So you're standing on a platform looking into this huge warehouse, and every word you've ever said and everything you've ever touched is in that warehouse. So you can go and you go round and you pick up the rubber that you had at school, the eraser that you had at school, and it reminds you of something. And then you find the first shoe your mum bought for you or you wore. And all of those things, and they all hold memory, and they're coded to memories and smells and sounds. And you walk into a library, and all of the books around this library, all about you, all the words you ever spoke, every piece of paper you ever wrote on. And then this amazing, lovely old man comes along, and he's called the caretaker, and he takes you to a room, and it says processing. And when he opens the door and it's got lots of locks on it, and you think, good Lord, what am I doing here? And he opens the door and all these words are flying around the room. And there's all this furniture and artifacts. And this is the room of processing. So when we process some of the stories that hold us hostage with this lovely caretaker, and we can see them on a screen, and we can start to understand and change the lens that we're looking at life through. So once we've understood why that happened in that way, and why that person said that thing in that way that hurt you and you bound you, once it's processed, it goes out of the processing room into the Hall of Records without any triggers. So it's a really healing event. Can you imagine that?
I'm actually, yeah, beautiful.
Beautiful. And a really lovely way to I suppose to open your eyes, really. And I think I might have jumped to yes, to drawing back the veil. That was second chapter of this. There's so much in here, it's almost impossible. It would take us an hour to do this.
But you know what I like? The beautiful thing is, and I'll be very honest, between your energy and the energy of Isis that you're channeling through right now, you could feel the power, and you could feel and I know it's written in the book, which is one of the reasons that I really want to help you get it out there, because
yes.
It is so simple, but with love, which I think is what a lot of us need in this time of day. So we were talking before, we live in the conditioned mind. We were taught structure. We were taught this is how you have to do things, and you have to strategize and blah, 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 which is fine. I feel personally that spirituality, in a way, not for everybody, but in a way, has also become very structured. I myself have a whole bunch of modalities. I have studied a whole bunch of certifications, and I don't say it to show it off, but I can compare different things. And as you were speaking, I could hear in the back of my mind, that's exactly what it is. But when we look at modalities and certifications and this and that, they trademark this, they have a process for this, and they have a set of rules for this, and you can only do, let's say, I don't know, Reiki, just to give an example. You have to put your hands this way and do this and do that. And it's like, why and when did we make it so complicated? Our higher self is not complicated. All that is not that complicated. We have complicated spirituality to the point, I feel, that sometimes it's so muddled, and yet I'm here speaking to you about a book that was channeled through love. We could call her whatever we want, but she's love.
Yeah. And throughout the book, and a lot of the sections within each stage finish with love. There's a beautiful bit, and I hopefully get to it, where she talks about love, and she challenges everything. She talks about gratitude and silence and mystery and conflict, and she even teaches you how to find the one. It's in here, the book. It's a lesson for living. It really is. And and I've been on the spiritual path for most of my life, and certainly on a sort of a non-religious spiritual path. Gosh, it's 20 and it's 30, nearly 30 years that I've been working on myself and with others in the spiritual world. And here she brings this simple way of actually making that deepest connection with you. You've got everything you need already. Everything's in perfect order, and she says it, it's in perfect order. And when we know that, we can relax a bit. We're so fraught, aren't we? And we worry that things aren't the way they're meant to be, or the way we dreamt of. We wonder why we can't find love. You don't need to look anywhere for love. You are love. And she tells you that every cell of your being is love. And when you know that, and that is deep within you, you attract the right people, because everybody else is a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And they're teaching what you don't want very often. Certainly for myself, I was quite good at bad relationships. Had quite a few. So it's so it's when you love yourself, and I don't need another person to fulfill me.
Mm-hmm.
When I was so in love with myself that I knew that I could enhance somebody's life, then I met the man of my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And she teaches very simple, profound lessons. So even if you're highly spiritual, there'll be something in here for you, because it blows me away every time I read it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I didn't really get that. I didn't see that. Oh, okay, I've got that now. So she teaches a lot about lens and filters, the way we are entrained,
Mm-hmm.
and the way we let go of that entrainment, and how we can discover the power of ourselves. One of the things she talks about in here is around the art of negotiation. It's towards the end of the book. And she talks about the art of negotiation being neutral. So you've hurt me. Let's just imagine you've said something that really went smacking me, and it was like, that's not right. And I'm all sort of egotistical about this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's my ego protecting me, and it's a great thing. Never, you need to control your ego. It's a good thing. That's the mental health person we're talking, but Isis agrees with that. And so you've upset me. And it's only when I take the sting out of that, and I take my reaction out of that, because I choose, okay, I can choose the lens of love, or I can choose the lens of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite is fear. I've got one or the other, and there are different degrees of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically I'm fearful. So therefore, when I say, no, I'm not going to be fearful, did Angie actually mean that? What was that really what I was hearing, or was some other sort of weird stuff going on in me? And when the art of negotiations and conflict management is to be in neutral, and it's to have processed, like in the Hall of Records, to have processed that. And the more time we spend in our spiritual body, accessing our highest knowledge and highest wisdom, the less we need to spend in our egoic body,
Right.
which is about comparison and conflict, and about competition, all the C's, and really all we need to do is just find the source, which is love.
Yeah. Which is inside us, which is us.
It's us. Every cell of your being is love. There's no need for it anywhere else at all. And the food you eat is love. If you're feeding yourself beige food, it's made by a factory and not the people in it. God bless them. I hope they pour love into it. But if that's what you're feeding yourself, it's not going to feed you, because it's fresh. And a lot of people, I'm not a raw eater, by the way, but fresh plants, you can feel when you've eaten a salad, can't you? That's fresh out of the garden. There's love code in it. So,
and the truth is that we forget, we've been so civilized, I guess, to put it that way. We forget that we are organic beings.
Yes.
Organic bodies. And the best thing for us is organic food, not in the sense of pesticides and this and that, obviously, yes, in that way, but we need real food. But we're so used to the drive-through because it's quicker. We're so used to the pop in the meal because we don't want to cook. We're so used to I have no idea how to farm. How do I even grow my food? And that's an actual conversation I've had with my boyfriend, because he actually wants a farm and animals to feed us. And I'm like, I don't want to see it. Just serve it on the plate. I don't want to know what happens with before. He's like, where do you think it comes from? I'm like, the supermarket. That's all I need to know. But again, because we don't live in a society that's like that. And it's funny because I talk with one of my sisters it's heat. I'm in Texas right now. There's a massive heat wave. It's like really, really hot out there. And I was telling her, like, I'm so glad I'm alive. And this time I know I was probably alive in a past life where air conditioning did not exist. However, that's not me right now. Me right now doesn't know how those people lived. And that's the thing. But they didn't know that this was a possibility. We know that it's a possibility. So we've been so good in helping things improve our life, but it's taken us out of nature as well.
Absolutely. And Isis talks about fuel in the Shining Bright, which is the last stage. She talks about the fuel and what to fuel your body with.
Uh-huh.
And she says you need to fuel your body with sunshine.
Uh-huh.
The radiant golden light of earth is what she calls it. So it's the air you breathe, the sunlight, the moonlight, the ground you walk on, the plants that you eat, the touch of another human being or a fur animal or a bird or a spider, you know, whatever it is, everything is so encoded with love that when you make that connection, you can't unmake it. And you know when you're eating the chocolate bar or the cake or whatever it is that you're eating, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's balanced.
No, I love my chocolate. I love my chocolate.
Yeah,
so much.
So it is about balance, but knowing that that is fuel and that is fun or whatever.
Right.
So it's how we live. She teaches us how to live in this book. She also teaches us about healing. Can I read a little bit about her? The way she, okay. Can I read a little bit about what she was like when she was alive in Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. How are we doing for time, Angie?
We still have about 15 minutes.
Oh, perfect then. She said, when it comes to healing, there are many modalities that I used. And that's interesting that you were talking about modalities and being very prescriptive. And as a clinician, I like prescriptive patterns, especially if I'm doing something. There's a good process, you know, to do everything really. But we must always use our intuition. And Isis was heavily into intuition. She says, I use the Ankh as a vibrational tool to match the energies of health. Okay, so that means, and I think, and since she wrote this, I saw a bit of it was an advert for an Egyptology thing. And they was showing an image of somebody, my Ankh's up there. Excuse me 1 minute, let me just grab it, it's on the wall. There we go. Sorry. So apparently they use the Ankh, so they would use it as a tuning fork. This is just brass, it's only an ornament. So they make it vibrate and then they put it here so that vibration went up into her body.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it was sort of a mind thing, that's what they do, or into the mouth if it was a digestive thing. And so that's how they use the Ankh. And you always see pictures of Isis with the Ankh on her. Right. I did not know this. This was brand new information.
And there's a lot of hieroglyphics of other gods, kings, people, whatever, that have the Ankh in their hand.
Absolutely. So it's a vibrational tool to match the energy to health. So they knew a lot about vibration. And we now know this as the people, the archaeologists, are finding all this information out. I used universal energy and earth energy to infuse the cells. So she was manipulating the energies of the trees and the plants and the wind and the storms to, if you like, funnel it down to create health in people. Staggering, isn't it? I used poultices, bindings, tinctures, and syrups, which we do today. You know, modern medicine is taking it away from the medicine woman into a pharmacy arrangement. And the reason for that is efficacy and, you know, because you can't always measure things the same way. I wrapped sores and ulcers in leaves, used hot and cold compresses, and manipulated the flesh to move stuck energy. So no lessons, she just knew. She was working intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
I was limited in knowledge of the day, but called upon my counsel to assist me. So she was, I'm assuming her counsel were like my counsel, which are beings from all that is.
Right.
And,
Right.
yeah. So she wasn't working alone
Mm-hmm.
at all. I raised people from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she talks quite a lot about how scared people were in those days, because she was a highborn woman, but wore local village clothes, and she was out there discreetly doing her stuff. She wasn't out there in all her finery. And she said that she raised people from the dead, and it was because they feared the bogeyman. I don't know what it was. She's not been able to explain it to me what that is, but she had an unrealistic fear of being smited by the gods, whatever that meant to the people of the day.
Yeah.
You get that?
Yeah, that's a whole conversation for another day, but yeah.
Okay. So when she means she raised them from the dead, I'm not saying they were physically dead, but they were in that dead state and or in the dying stages. And it was because of fear that was locking them in. I gave people their sight. So I don't know how she's doing it. And, you know, she's not going to share this sort of full information even in the second book called Medicine. But it's already an interesting book, and it's nothing like I imagined it was going to be. I healed the brokenhearted. And she is known as a compassionate mother and a compassionate healer. And having met her, you can feel that in her presence. I assisted people in transitioning from this life. Now, this wasn't euthanasia. This was in order that I've done a lot of physical work with dying people, and it's one of my favorite jobs, is to support somebody to transition. And it's so heartwarming with the families, and she talks quite a lot about this in the book, actually, about how to work with people that are very sick and dying. I use song and music to raise the spirits. And we were talking about songs earlier, and you know, really very, very important. And you will notice that if you want a calm, you'll choose a very sort of gentle. And if you want to dance, you won't choose that music. So she knew instinctively which music, and maybe this was toning, singing, I don't know what that really meant. And I use love as a cure-all. I love that. And then she tells you about you. There is a magic in your hands that you can use to support yourselves and others to heal. This is healing energy through the golden thread that you bring through you with intention of love. With intention. As love radiates through you to that other person's body and creates the process of healing.
Beautiful.
So she's saying how beautiful you are. She's constantly telling people how beautiful they are, you know, and she means it. It's genuine. She truly loves us, and she truly is amazed at what we know and how we're living. But she also thinks, why are you so blind and stupid at the same time? You know, it's a mixture of, and then she realizes all your technology, and she's fascinated by it, you know. So, but she says, you don't understand the basic essence of living. We've lost it, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think this is in many ways that book is to help us all, whoever we are, to find that again.
Right.
To really find that again,
Right.
to make that connection. And I think I've always been very earthy. I love my earth. I've always loved it. But now there's a silence that goes with it for me. I can literally just be lost in it. I can be mesmerized by it. It's just amazing. And the other night I was walking my dog, and the sky was just like, and I was amazed. And I think we need to get back into that heart of the radiant golden light of this amazing planet that we're on. And when we love each other and love the planet, all the other dark stuff won't need to show itself to us.
Right. We're actually starting to run out of time, but I want to end up with something as you're saying that. Kind of what we've talked about before. We get stuck in our mind, right? And we forget the simplicity of divinity, which is us. And she is one of those guides and those beings and those frequencies that's just here to remind us of our own power and our own beauty, which is what we're talking. And I remember I hadn't thought about this in a long time. It's happened to be about 3 times maybe, or 4 in my entire life. I don't remember the exact one. So I'm a graphic designer. I'm a taught graphic designer since I was 19 years old. So I think in terms of graphic design and color. At some point, I had an awakening. I had a shift. I let go of one of my onion layers. It was something profound. And Susie, I remember the next day driving and looking at the same grass I've been looking at for years, but it was brighter. And the reason I say graphic design, it's because I was trying to explain it to people, and I was like, it's like if I would have taken the color dapper and I would have like brightened up the green.
Yeah.
Everything was super bright. Now I understand it. That was years ago. Now I understand it as I was actually seeing more of what I was meant to see, and the vibration of the grass and the vibration, it made everything look brighter. Yeah. And my perception of things changed, and then I lost it. And I realize it because it's like you get back into the conditioning, society, problems, blah, 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 blah. And the light fades out. But it's what you just said. If we're able to connect and live through there, and I love that your book is a way of showing people how to do that, because I know it's possible. It's happened to me like 4 times in my life. And it's just this feeling that comes with it that are the words we always hear, everything's fine. But it's in those moments that we realize it. And then we jump back into the monkey brain, like I call it, and then we fade out again. So
absolutely. And this is the veil. If you had some gauze and you put gauze over your head, every time somebody said something that you wanted to hide from, you'd have a gauze. In fact, one of the stories in there is if you were to keep all the clothes on that you were wearing when you had a bad experience, right from tiny little clothes right through to whatever size you are now, you'd be like constricted like this. You'd be really uncomfortable. And it's like, take these blooming clothes off, take those stories off, get rid of them. And when a new story comes its way, deal with immediately. Deal with immediately. And don't build any more stories on top of stories. And as you deal with each one, you're also dealing with the sort of the record of that story, the root of that story. I'm a timeline therapist, and I love to do this work with people where you actually can go back to the source of that problem and get in down there and sort it out in your way and then bring it forward. And I think if we do that, if we take that veil off the moment we notice it,
right,
then the world will be in Technicolor, full Technicolor.
it is.
No veils.
We are running out of time.
Of course, I knew we would.
Like I told you at the beginning, I don't think it's going to be, we're going to be like, oh my God, we had so much still to talk about. But thank you so much for joining us. I want everybody to know where to reach out to you. I know the link for the actual book is below, but where else can they contact you directly?
Okay, well, I have a website that I built myself. It's not brilliant. It could do with some support.
Hey.
And so you can go through there, and if you subscribe to it and put Angie's name on your notes to me, I will send you a free meditation from the book. And if you want a specific one, let me know. So there is susijones.com is my website, and it's very easy as I spell it, SUSI Jones.com. And also you can find me on YouTube at Follow the White Rabbit with Susie. And I meet some amazing people, and do a lot of crochet and knitting and sewing and all, and cooking. So you just get a glimpse of my life. So if you want to see more of this sort of crazy woman here,
It's
then
beautiful,
come
crazy
really,
woman.
yeah, this beautiful crazy woman, absolutely. And I also have a circle of light. Now, obviously, this only works. Does work all right for some, I think, in the Northern Hemisphere. It's 6 p.m. on UK time.
Okay.
Yeah, so it does work. And that is a free circle of light. And if you do buy the book or the companion journal or anything like that, and you want to go through the book with me and other people, then we can do this on Patreon. So just get in touch and I'll explain all that to you.
Very nice.
But Angie, it's been lovely to just share. I spoke less about the book than because we got so much to talk about, but it was wonderful, and your insight was fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
No, thank you. It whatever was meant to flow flowed. So
did.
thank you so much, and thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.